doctors at the time were saying they thought it was in his head, just always on edge, and your head's all over the place, and it just really doesn't feel real, if I'm being honest. It's not something any parent should ever have to go through. It really does mess with your head. Hello everyone, how's it going? So like the title says, in this video I will be telling you how Chester's been getting on for the last few days, and also we will be taking a little look at how the cancer's been obviously affecting our family mentally and also psychologically. So let's first start off with how Chester's been getting on. So for the last few days or weeks, he's been, well, he did start off obviously pretty good, but for the last few days he's actually been going downhill a bit, and that's because he's now on this new medication. So it's actually having quite a impact on him in regards to making him feel nauseous and sick. In fact, yesterday and today he did unfortunately throw up as well, which we do need to get control of, because if he does throw up, then he could also be throwing up his meds, which throwing up the meds then would cancel out the treatment. So we need to make sure he's not throwing up, and to resolve this there is some anti-sickness medicine that we can give him, and we have started giving him, because the last few times when we've offered it to him he has been refusing and not wanting to take it because he's very strong like that, and he's, not wanting to take it because he just doesn't see the need. But now we're having to say to him, if you don't take it, then you will need to unfortunately get a tube put into your nose, which would basically go up in his nose and then go down into his stomach. So then we'd then have to give his medication through a syringe that goes into that tube on his nose and then just straight in. So that would obviously bypass him throwing up and not feeling too great, but at the same time it would also mean that he's got to have a tube in his nose for the next 2 years of his treatment or longer. So at the moment we want to avoid that by basically giving him the anti-sickness, and just hopefully that'll help him not be sick. Other than that though, he's been doing great. He's started moving a lot more as well. Now that he's come off the steroids, we're seeing, a bit more movement from him. Before he was very just stuck on the sofa. He could not move or anything. He's now actually, making his way onto the floor and actually wanting to play with some toys. So that's a really good thing, and I'm really proud of him. Also, if you didn't know, it was actually Chester's birthday as well on the weekend. So although we couldn't actually go out or do anything and we just had to stay in, he still had a good time because we played on the consoles and played games and stuff like that. He even helped the day before make his cake, which he ate a little bit on his birthday, but he couldn't really stomach it. But he did have a really good day. He did also have to have the community nurse out on that day as well, because it was on the Friday and it was the last day of having his final medication for that week, which actually goes through on his wiggly. You can check out the photos and read more about all this on chestersjourney.com. The link is in the description below if you want to read a lot more. So moving on, Chester has started unfortunately losing quite a bit of hair now. We have noticed on the back of his head here, which you can see on the photos that I'm showing throughout the video, you will notice that he's starting to lose his hair, but he is still keeping a lot of it. So we're hoping that he's not going to lose it all, but if he does, then we have kind of explained to him about losing hair and stuff, but we've not gone into too much information with him about that. So I'm not quite sure how he's going to take it, but I can imagine he's going to be quite upset, just like all children would be, and adults that unfortunately get cancer and lose their hair, which is another thing why I wanted in this video to go over how obviously the cancer, although Chester's the one that's got it, it does also impact the whole family and also friends and obviously grandparents and stuff as well. So before we go into all that, I just want to also first say thank you to everyone that have so far donated. If you haven't donated yet and you do want to help out our family, then you can click on the link that's in the description below and it will take you to the GoFundMe page where you can then obviously leave a donation. No matter how big or how small, we are grateful for anything. So even if it's £1, thank you very much. So like I said at the start of this video, I want to talk about how Chester getting cancer and it coming into our family has affected us all when it comes to psychologically and also mentally affecting. So since the very first day when myself and my partner found out that Chester did actually have cancer, it really did mess with my head and also my partner's. So it's not something that you expect to hear every day. It really wasn't something that we expected, but I still remember the day when we found out and my heart sank, and to be honest, the whole room went blurry and I really didn't hear what the consultant was saying, but it was really, obviously, like I said at the start just then, psychologically mind messing, and it wasn't something that I wanted to hear. So even to this day now, I still do not believe that Chester has cancer. I feel like I'm currently in a nightmare and I'm just not waking up. And I can't actually believe that I'm talking to a camera right now and talking about my little boy and saying how he has cancer, and like in the last video, how he's got leukemia and also he's got the rare form, which is the Philadelphia form. It's really not something that I thought I would ever be doing or sharing and talking about. But here we are now, and that's what I'm doing. Anyway, so when it comes to not only myself and my partner, it's also Chester. Because one minute he's running around playing with his friends and everything, and now his life has been turned upside down. So obviously since he's found out he's had cancer, or got cancer, sorry, he all of a sudden, he can no longer go to school, so he can no longer play with any of his friends. And obviously he asked me and my partner, why can't I play with my friends or see my friends? And it's very hard to explain to a 4-year-old, or I should be saying 5-year-old now. But anyway, because his birthday was only 2 days ago, I'm going to say 4-year-old. It's very hard to explain to a 4-year-old why you can no longer play with your friends. Obviously, we tell him that he's got a silly illness and he's got to take special medicine to get rid of it, and he will then be able to go back to school and play with his friends again. But he keeps asking how much longer. Can I stop taking these tablets now? Because every day he's got to put on his brave face and he swallows all his tablets, which is very good because he's scared, because he doesn't want to have a tube in his nose, which again goes to the psychological and mentally, affecting it has even on Chester. Not to mention earlier today and yesterday he threw up, and his little baby sister has to see him being sick, and she's probably wondering, because she's only 14 months old, why is my big brother being sick? And also, why is he not at home as much anymore? Why is mummy and daddy always taking him away from me? And obviously we're taking him to the hospital, but she doesn't know why she's being left at home with her nanny and granddad, or nan and pops, which, how do you explain that to, a 14-month-old? You just can't. So that's what I wanted to share with you in this video. It's little things that you don't, really think about. I never thought about all this, how people getting cancer and stuff can have a massive impact on their family and family members and just everyone around them. So it's also not even just us as a family, it's also his friends and his grandparents and stuff that, it's affecting to them, and uncles and stuff, why they can no longer see Chester, and yeah, it's not nice. So moving on from that, it's also like tomorrow Chester's got to have another lumbar puncture. So he has quite a lot of lumbar punctures. He's already had quite a few. But having to explain to him every time, like I'm going to have to again later, say to him, tomorrow you're having your little sleepy test, as we call it, and just taking him in every time into the hospital, and then they put him to sleep, holding Chester in my arms while he's crying and cuddling me and saying he doesn't want to be put asleep and stuff, and then him closing his eyes in my arms. It's not something any parent should ever have to go through. It really does mess with your head. It is messing with my head a lot. But obviously, me and my partner, we're both being very strong because that's what we got to do as parents, just like any other parent has to for their child to get them through the horrible cancer that they have. So yeah, it's just little things like that. Also, every evening we have to check Chester's temperature, and he already knows if his temperature's too high, we then have to take him into the hospital. So it doesn't matter what time. It could be at 2 in the morning, he could call me, I would then go into his bedroom. If I then check his temperature, and if it's over a certain temperature, so it's 38, if it's over that, then I would then have to rush him into hospital within the hour, because he has to then go straight onto medication, as they do not want his line to get infected, because if his line gets infected, then he would then have to be put under and then have a new line put in maybe. And yeah, it's just really not a nice thing that we want to ever have to go through. Obviously, him getting a temperature and us having to go into hospital, so far that's not happened, but it will happen at some point, and it's probably going to happen a few times within the next 2 years. So it's just, yeah, it's really mind messing, and you're just always on edge and your head's all over the place, and it just really doesn't feel real, if I'm being honest. So also at the very beginning, when Chester started displaying all these weird symptoms, he couldn't move his arms and his legs and stuff like that, we took him into a hospital, our local hospital, and then it's also, back then he couldn't quite explain what was wrong, but the doctors at the time were saying they thought it was in his head, but he was saying he was actually in pain, and they didn't quite believe what he was saying. And that's not very good on Chester as well, because now he's got that kind of trust issue when it comes to talking to a doctor and stuff like that, because he was fobbed off back then, and even obviously now that's going to affect his mind psychologically. You know, he although he's 4 at the time, he should be listened to, and you need to listen to the child when they're telling you that they're in pain. You can't just say that it's in their head. But anyway, I will cover all that in another video about how Chester was treated at the very beginning, before we even found out he had cancer, because I'm going off subject a little bit there. So when it comes to other worries and things like that, we've now also got soon the decision to make on what route Chester takes with his treatment as well. So there's like, you've got the high risk, the low risk, you've also got different clinical trials. So you've got the European, you've got the American one, and stuff like that. I will go over all this in another video closer to the time, but it's just things like that as well. So if me and my partner, we chose, say, for Chester to go on to the European treatment, or that's if he got the option to go on to the American treatment. But anyway, what I'm saying is, you don't always get to go on to the American treatment, but let's just say we chose the European, but he did have the option to go on to the American. What if we made the wrong decision? What if that treatment doesn't help him, or it's not the right treatment for him? We've just got all these worries. It's also finding out his bone marrow results and stuff, how well the treatment's going, and it's really not a nice experience, and it's something that no one should ever have to go through. So that pretty much sums up what this video is about. It's just basically just sharing with you how myself and my partner and how I feel Chester's feeling in his head. He's very brave and he doesn't really say too much. He just says, "I'm fine, Dad." He puts his thumb up and stuff like that because he's a very brave and good boy. But that's what the video is all about. So I'm going to wrap up this video now. But if you did like hearing about Chester's journey, you can check out chestersjourney.com and also subscribe to this channel to follow on how Chester's getting on and to hear about more updates and stuff like that. So that's it. That's the end of this video. Thank you and bye.